Good evening. I'd like to call the meeting of the Carpinteria Valley Waters to order. Can we have a pledge of allegiance, please? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all. The roll call, please, Lisa.
Director O'Connor?
Here.
Director Holcomb?
Here.
Director Balch?
Here.
Director Roberts is absent, and Director Van Meerden?
Yes.
4 present.
Then we got item number 3, public forum. Any person may address the board of directors on any matter within its jurisdiction which is not on the agenda. Nothing. Then we got 4 items on the consent agenda. On item number 4A, any questions? 4B, any questions? 4C, any questions? And 4D, any questions? If there's no questions, can I have a motion, please?
Polly makes a motion.
Accept, or second, excuse me.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Director O'Connor?
Aye.
Director Holcomb?
Yes.
Director Balch?
Aye.
Director Roberts is absent, and Director Van Meerden?
Yes.
Motion passes 4-1.
Then we got item number 5, unfinished business, none. And then number 6, we adjourn to the regular board meeting of the Carpinteria Groundwater Sustainability Agency. I call the meeting to order. Item number 2, public forum. Any person may address the board of directors on any matter business jurisdiction which is not on the agenda. Anything, Lisa? Then we got item number 3, the consent agenda. We got item number 3A. Any questions? 3B, any questions? 3C, any questions? And 3D, any questions? If we can have a motion, please.
Polly makes motion to approve the consent.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Director O'Connor?
Aye.
Director Holcomb?
Yes.
Director Balch?
Aye.
Director Roberts is absent, Director Van Meerden?
Yes.
Motion passes 4-1.
Then we got unfinished business, none. Then we got item number 5, 5A. Consider well registration metering policy for action. Bob.
Thank you. We presented this fairly in detail at the last board meeting, and so I just have a summary today. And I'm sure you can't read that. I can't read that. So you should have a packet where you can read this. I'll just quickly go through the summary table of what the policy, what the main elements of the policy have, and a little bit about the details and deadlines. So the first part of the policy is a well registration policy, and the details of that are all wells, active, inactive, abandoned, de minimis, must be registered with the agency. So regardless of the status of your well, it's required to be registered if it can be found. The deadline for that will be March 31st, 2026. The details or the mechanism to comply is you have to submit a private well registration form. The next part of the policy is installation of flow meter and registration of that flow meter. This one applies to active wells only, and there's a definition in the policy of what an active well is and what an inactive well is. That deadline will be March 31st also of 2026, and we have some not recommended but suggested meters in the policy, listed in the appendix of the policy. It has to be AMI compatible with our AMI system. The third element is the annual exemption form. So if you do have a de minimis well or an inactive or an abandoned well, you still must file an exemption form. So annually, that's required by May 31st, and you have to submit, photos and that sort of thing, and electric bills to verify that it has been and will continue to be inactive. there's a $35 filing fee for inactive and abandoned wells only. So de minimis wells, which I don't believe we have any in this basin, the fee is waived. Start of AMI billing period. So this is another important piece of this policy. So the first full billing under this new program for metered wells will be May 1st of 2026. So we will have had all the meters installed. Our AMI system will have collected the meter reads, and we'll be submitting that June to the county for collection. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, no. Where did the slide go? Huh. It's missing. Collection through the county tax rolls, groundwater charges are going to be continued to be collected through the tax rolls. That will be starting November of 2027. Those fees will be based on the meter reads, of course, rather than the estimated use that we use currently. Fee calculations will be charged per acre foot of groundwater extracted, with the meter being the demonstration of how many acre feet were extracted. The current rate is $79 per acre foot, but that changes as you go from one year to another, depending on the budget and depending on the number of acre feet that will be, or they're expected to be extracted. Penalties, non-compliance, inaccurate past due forms, or tampering. There will be a fee of $120 to $1,000 per day, depending on severity and reoccurrence of the non-compliance. Exemptions from metering. I think, as we stated earlier, de minimis wells are exempt, and a de minimis well is defined as a well that pumps less than 2 acre feet per year and is for domestic purposes. Inactive and abandoned wells are also exempt from the meter requirements. Again, exemption forms are required, and proof with the form is required to demonstrate inactivity or abandoned status. Compliance enforcement. So if we do have, for example, someone that is out of compliance, let's say their meter is not tested on a regular basis, this, of course, would be down the road. We would use a crop factor to determine what their basis of the per acre foot fee. So, for example, we would use a crop factor of 4 acre feet per acre, and then measure the crop coverage on that parcel, and then apply the 4 acre feet per acre to the fee, and then that would be the fee that we submit to the county for collection. And what that does is it creates an incentive for people to comply rather than pay a higher rate, because we expect the 4 acre feet per acre would be higher than most crop uses. So unfortunately, I don't know where I don't know how, oh, there it is. Unfortunately, we have to adopt this by resolution, and we realized that after the agenda was published. And so at this point, what we're going to ask the board to do is just direct the general manager to prepare a resolution to come back at the next board meeting for approval or adoption.
So moved.
Second.
We got a motion and a second. Bob, I have a question. As far as the $500 county grant, is that being in progress? So the private pumpers know to apply for that, or is it still in?
It's still, yeah, it's available. You're reminding me to give the water agency a call to just check and see the status of that program, but I do believe it's still funded.
But can we send out a mailer to, well, all our customers to let them know that?
Yeah, we'll do some outreach regarding, so we'll do some outreach, not tomorrow, but after the next meeting when that policy's actually in place, to make sure that, you know, we're communicating all the things, including meter grants, and making sure people understand the,
Right, and also, is the GSA ready to commit to the $500 for any pumper that puts on a transmitter on there?
the grants are actually from the county.
Both.
Yeah, well, the $500 grant is from the county. We haven't discussed whether we'll implement a grant program. That would be a topic of another meeting, but if you'd like, I can put that on the next agenda.
Would you please, because I think the growers that want to put their meters in, if they have some guidance on, you know, make it happen, then the sooner the better.
Okay, will do.
Okay, we got a motion and a second?
I have a
Sorry.
quick question. So on the, I thought that an inactive well was also exempt from the annual form, or at least the fee. Is it only de minimis?
Yeah. It's
So
only,
is the definition of abandoned not enough that we know that this well is abandoned, like that it's not reusable without drilling?
yeah, that's a good question. I'd have to go back to the actual policy and look at that.
Okay,
but
yeah, I thought last meeting, I thought that I clocked that it was abandoned was also exempt, but it seems like a kind of onerous task if you have a truly abandoned well to have to pay this fee and send this in annually, that my abandoned well is abandoned. I mean, assuming that definition is like truly abandoned and unusable, but.
Yeah,
guess reread
I
it
can
too.
check that and bring it back when we go to adopt this.
I'd just like to add that the great, so you can double check that, and we knew about the county with the $500, and if it's a grant that you're, want to look into, fine, but, an enormous amount of work has been done on this since we first started this several months ago, a lot of good input from Scott, and I remember us just beginning to go through what types of meters would be okay, how long ago that was, and Scott, I thought you'd just gotten 1 meter for your well, and you were telling us what you got and that it worked fine, and that was good input. So just want to thank the staff and also thank the community, because a lot of work went into this. I know it's not completely where we want it yet, but it's an awfully good start. So I would have supported it tonight if we had it, and I'll be happy to next time. Thank you.
Okay, any more questions?
Does that represent a modification to the motion? Any of those comments?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
We're just going to move. So yeah, we got a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Director O'Connor?
Aye.
Director Holcomb?
Yes.
Director Balch?
Aye.
Director Roberts is absent, and Director Van Wingerden.
Yes.
Motion passes 4-1.
May I make a couple comments before we move on?
Go for it, Scott.
Time to fill out a...
It's all in the family here. so.
Okay, thank you. Scott Vanderkar. Bob, in your description here, you said we will have these meters in by then. So I'm confused, is the grower putting these in, or the well owner putting these in, or is the district?
Sorry, I might have misspoken. The well owners are putting the.
Okay. And the other concern I have is knowing that a lot of this is drawn from other districts that are ahead of us, and information has been brought forward. But I don't remember if there are other districts that have the AMI system on them and the cost involved. Do we have an idea on that, the affordability of it, and kind of in line with some of the previous comments that were made?
Would you like me to answer those questions through the chair?
Are you comfortable doing that? or-
I'm comfortable. I just know that we don't want to get into conversations during board meetings, so.
No, I understand. No, but I think it's important that because we're going to move this thing forward, and we want the well or the private pumpers to know what's available to them, so if you don't mind. So.
Okay, through the chair. So the AMI receiver or transmitter, I guess, is supplied by the district, so there's no cost with respect to that. And the software system that collects, the radios that collect the reads are already in place for the district's water meters. So we just add on to that.
And are there other districts, other basins nearby that have implemented this with the AMI or similar system?
Fox Canyon is the place where we got the idea to use AMI.
Okay, great. One of the reasons I ask is we have a network of growers in the grower community, and if we know Fox and Canyon, for instance, we know growers in that area, we can call them, say, hey, how did this work out? What lessons could we learn without making the same mistakes? Thank you.
Thanks, thanks, Bob.
No, we do the install, they provide the AMI system.
Correct.
Did we vote? Did we have a roll call?
We did.
Okay, sorry. Then we got item number 5B, consider indication for coverage membership with Golden State Risk Management Authority for action, Bob.
Yeah, so as you may recall, we formed the GSA on a mandate from the state. And it's a different agency than the water district. It's created by a joint powers, exercise of powers agreement with the city and two counties, Ventura and Santa Barbara. And so it is a standalone agency, even though we intermix some activities with water districts, for example, the board meeting itself. I think we made the assumption that our liability insurance that the water district had was covering GSA liability. And so we had a conversation with our representatives at the Aqua JPI group, and they indicated that it's not covered. So they suggested that we reach out and get private coverage because it's kind of a small liability, package of risks. So today we're bringing you the request to engage Golden State Risk Management Authority to provide us liability insurance. And is it also property insurance? No, okay.
General liability.
So any questions for Bob? Or?
Yeah, just a quick one. I assume we've got familiarity with GSRMA, and how did we decide in this case?
It was a recommendation from the JPIA.
Yeah. Do we have experience with them?
No.
No, San Ynez, there's a GSA in San Ynez that uses them as well, that they refer to us as well.
Thank you.
But just curious, why can't they just write it in a separate policy for the GSA under the JPA like our regular coverage?
I believe that it was more expensive with the JPIA.
Correct, yeah.
Fair enough, okay. So,
Yeah,
any
those
more
are two.
questions? We need a motion, please.
I'll support it. I make a motion to support it.
Second.
We got a motion this second. Any more questions? Then roll call, please.
Director O'Connor?
Aye.
Director Holcomb?
Yes?
Director Balch?
Aye.
Director Roberts is absent, and Director Van Wingerden?
Yes.
Motion passes 4-1.
Then we got item number 6, Executive Director Report, the financials.
I'd have Norma do that one.
Included in your packet through May 31st. Our overall revenues are at 116% because they are through the tax roll. We received the majority of the fees that were assessed. Now, anything that's trickling in is just overdue assessments. Our overall expenses through May are at 68%. It's about 20% below projections. That concludes my presentation.
Okay, any questions? Then we are adjourned. So then hereby we reconvene the regular district board meeting. We got item number 8A, recognize Carpinteria Waterwise Garden Contest winner for 2025 for information and a presentation.
Yeah. Thank you. So We have these water-wise contests every year, and we go out and look at various water-wise gardens. And this year, we selected Jeanette and Robert Munoz's garden to be the winner for 2025. And I'll just read a little spiel here. This is part of our gratitude and congratulations to the Munoz family for their remarkable achievement and enduring commitment to sustainable gardening. The Munoz Garden is a true reflection of love, dedication, and environmental stewardship, values deeply rooted in the lifelong conservation work of Jeanette's late husband, Gus. His passion and 50 years of service at the UCSB inspired the transformation of their landscape into a thriving, hand-watered haven of native and water-wise plants. Together with their son, Robert, the Munoz family cultivated more than just a garden. They nurtured a legacy. Gus's memory lives on in every bloom, every stone, and every corner of this peaceful sanctuary. Thank you so much. And so with that, I'm going to show a few photos of the garden, and then we have a little gift for you to show our appreciation for your work. So these are small pictures, but there's a lot of beautiful plants in here, and I'm going to read them off because I don't have the plants memorized. But included in this garden are foxtail agave, jade California poppies, Mexican sage, lantana, and succulents. So you'll notice all of those plants are water-wise for California and native to this area. A little shot of some of the blooming flowers and hibiscus over here. And as said, this is a very nice area to enjoy the plants. Finally, some more succulents here, and again, a very beautiful place to enjoy the outdoors. So with that, thank you again to the Munoz family. We would like to present a gift to express our gratitude for your work towards,
Should we go down?
yes. So Judy, please come up. This is Judy Morelli. And the board's going to come down and present this to you, and we'll just take a quick picture. Lisa, can you take a picture?
Can I just take a quick pic?
Your center.
Okay, ready? 1, 2, 3. Perfect.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. I know. Thank you all.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, we appreciate your work.
Well done. Thank you. Then we got item number 8B, consider adoption of resolution number 1168, approving the amended fiscal year 2025-2026 operating and capital budgets for action.
Yes, so this is an adjusted budget from the 3-year budget that we adopted in 2023. It stays within the revenue model that we use to adopt the rates for that 3-year period. And Norma is going to give a presentation on what's in the budget and what changes occurred. So I'll turn it over to you.
Yeah, thank you. I provided this presentation back on July 9th. There's been a couple changes to it, but it was reviewed by the Rate and Budget Committee on July 14th, so we went into it in much more detail. So again, as Bob mentioned, in September 23, the board had approved the 3-year budgets for fiscal year 24 through 26. And staff conducted a mid-year review in December and updated budget for fiscal year 26. Next slide. Okay. So as previously presented, the amended budget reflects a 619 acre-foot decrease in water sales projections, going from 4,219 acre-feet down to 3,600 acre-feet. And this equates to about a $1.2 million decrease in revenue. Overall operating revenue is projected to decrease 6% or $1.2 million, again due to the water sales going from $19.1 million to $17.9 million. Overall, the amended budget also includes updated to various operating expenditures. Notable changes are an increase in personnel expenditures. So different from the last presentation, as I separated out one-time costs versus ongoing costs. So increase of $328,000 for one-time costs, which are related to succession planning for the retirement of our general manager, as well as accrued leave payouts related to that retirement. Under ongoing costs, there's a $192,000 increase related to the second half of market equity adjustments resulting from the November 24 compensation study, as well as scheduled step increases and a projected 2.5% COLA increase. We're projecting an increase in utilities of $55,000 related to an increase in electrical costs for power and pumping of wells and pump stations, as well as an increase in professional services of $111,000 related to legal services.
Can you expand on that jump for legal services?
Yes, Bob, I'll let you expand on that one.
Yeah, it's based on a trailing budget. In last year, we had, in the middle of a lawsuit, and we had a lot of legal expenses. So we put it in there just in case this suit does not get resolved.
Yes, an increase in state water related to CCWA and Department of Water Resources variable costs of $38,000. You may recall that at July 9th meeting, I projected a decrease of about $150,000 in this cost, and since then we received updated information from CCWA related to a true-up of costs from DWR. So now we are projecting an increase. We don't have final numbers. They're having a meeting tomorrow, or we should. Director O'Connor, you probably will hear an update on that, on the true-up of the CCWA and DWR variable costs,
Very good.
and how they'll affect us. We also project an increase in water treatment costs of $757,000 related to the Cater water treatment plant. Again, the original budget assumed a 70-30 split with the Montecito Water District. But based on Montecito's actuals in fiscal year 25, the assumption was changed to 87-13. An increase in overall JPA of $50,000, primarily related to the district's portion of the COMB budget, and an increase of $72,000 in other expenses related to insurance general costs and permitting fees. Overall operating expenditures are projected to increase 14.7% or $1.5 million, going from $10.5 million to $12 million. And capital expenditures are increasing about $10,000 from the adopted budget, and there's detailed summary sheets included in your packet that are different from what you saw from the last board meeting. The department managers included additional detail on those capital sheets for your information.
Okay, are there any other questions or
I wanted to, did you attend the rate and budget?
I did.
Was that you?
Yeah.
you and Matt, right?
Yeah, so we did cover it in the rate and budget meeting following the initial presentation, which we held off
Right.
previously. So I think all the detail was there. The only comment that I would make that I think was relevant from that meeting is recognizing that this was, the third year of a 3-year budget.
Correct.
So I think that's, relevant to consider the scope of the adjustments as a result of this being the third year. First time having done a three-year budget, so made me feel a little bit better about the variances, but I think we now got an opportunity going into the next cycle, a little better view of just how to do a three-year budget. So that would be my comment.
Okay, so any other comments? Then can we have a motion?
We got
I think Will has a question.
Case.
Case, Will has a question.
Go ahead, Will.
I have a comment as well as a question. First question, does this budget include any increase in headcount,
Employee headcount?
employee headcount?
So the amended budget does not include any increase in headcount. The original budget that was adopted in September of '23 did have an additional water treatment operator position in there, but there isn't any in the amended. The increases aren't related to an additional position.
Okay, because I want to remind the board that headcount is really important, and people spend money, and if you don't have the heads, you don't spend the money. That's really important. The other question I had is about the total. Have you noticed that a big chunk of the increase is going to lawyers?
Thank you, Will. It's a necessary evil, but we're mindful. Thank you. So, can we have a motion, please?
I'll support adopting the budget. I appreciate Patrick's details, too. Thank you.
Second.
We got a motion and a second. Any more discussion? Then roll call, please.
Director O'Connor?
Aye.
Director Holcomb?
Yes.
Director Balch?
Aye.
Director Roberts is absent. Director Van Wingerden?
Yes.
Motion passes 4-1.
Then we got item number 8C, consider adoption of resolution number 1169, capital cost recovery fee fiscal year 2025-2026. Bob, for action.
Yeah, this is an annual thing that we do to update the capital cost recovery fees, and I don't really have much to say unless you have something to add. It's just we use the same formula every year to update the costs.
I move we adopt resolution 1169.
I'll second.
We got a motion and a second. Any more discussion? And then roll call, please.
Director O'Connor?
Aye.
Director Holcomb?
Yes.
Director Balch?
Aye.
Director Roberts is absent. Director Van Wingerden?
Yes.
Motion passes 4-1.
Then we got item number 8D, consider adopting revised rules and regulations for action. Bob, and then Mesa.
Yeah, so again, on an annual basis, we look at we review the rules and regs and update those per the necessary changes. And so Mesa, do you want to talk about what those changes are?
There's just one thing that I'll mention. So you have the memo summarizing the changes. The only thing that I'll mention that has changed from when we previously talked is that we'd proposed a modification to Appendix E, I think, which is also, we were proposing as a resolution 1170, and we removed that change. So there are not going to be any changes to the appendix and resolution, which deals with water rates and charges. So it's just the other updates, which are now summarized in the memo.
Hey, Meso, I had a really dumb question. Why is there a TOC on the top of the pages? At least,
The rules,
T-
I don't have a copy of your packet.
It's just I think it's for the table of contents.
Oh,
on
yes.
every
So
page.
it looks like it's a hyperlink back to the table of contents that appears at the top of each page.
oh, okay.
So you can just quickly navigate
Oh,
through.
okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
And I would just add that we did cover this also in the rate and budget meeting on the 17th with further detail.
Okay, if there's no more questions, thank you, Mesa. Can we have a motion, please?
I'll support the motion.
Second?
We got a motion and a second. Any more discussion? And roll call, please.
Director O'Connor?
Aye.
Director Holcomb?
Yes.
Director Balt?
Aye.
Director Roberts is absent. Director Van Wigerden?
Yes.
Motion passes 4-1.
Thank you. Then we got item number 8E. Consider proposed methodology for calculating water supply impact fee for information. Bob, or Mesa too?
Yeah, Meso's handling this, so I'll let her present the slides.
Okay. And Bob, I think you saw, but I sort of moved through the graphics with each slide, so I'll let you know. It'll be kind of maybe quick transitions between slides. But so the water supply impact fee, I'll just remind everyone that this is something that we're proposing to charge development and redevelopment projects, which trigger this fee. So we have an ordinance that assigns a baseline allocation to every parcel that represents efficient water use on that parcel. And then we have another ordinance that says when a development or redevelopment project is intensifying that parcel. And so if through that ordinance, a project triggers the intensification, we would then charge them an intensification fee. So we have the ordinance for when a project triggers intensification, but we haven't yet established how we calculate that fee or what that fee is. So that's what we'll be talking about tonight. And the first thing that we want to do is give a little bit more background on supply reliability as a motivation for this fee. There's a couple of things we need to do when establishing this fee. One of them is make sure that we identify a clear nexus between the motivation for this fee and the project that underlines the fee that ties to what the charge actually is, as well as outlining the methodology for it. So that's why I'm going to start with this background on supply reliability. I'll then go through the proposed methodology at sort of a high level, and when we bring documents to you in the next meeting, those documents will have the detailed calculation steps in them, but I'm not going to get to that level of detail in the conversation today just for understandability. And then we'll talk about potential new demand, and you'll see how that ties in when we go through the calculation, and then the next steps for the process for adoption. So I think everyone's pretty familiar with this graph at this point, but just to remind you, this is how we're representing our supply reliability in times of drought. So we believe we have sufficient supply in normal and wet conditions, but when we have extended drought periods, that red shaded bar represents the portion of our supply which would be difficult to actually produce in times of extended drought. So that's existing customers whose demand is difficult to meet in times of drought. That blue bar on the right bar shows additional potential demand. So the combination of those two is what we'd be trying to supply through CAP or a similar water reliability project. So this is an important basis for this project that we want to keep in mind, is that those are sort of the buckets of water that we're trying to allocate costs related to a new supply reliability project to. So if you go to the next slide.
Can I ask a question on that? So
Yeah.
that's just allocation based, right? That's not actual usage based at all.
Yeah, that's allocation.
Strictly allocation.
Yeah, we're trying to, represent general usage. We don't want to, so in this view, we're not trying to show usage in a particular year. We're trying to show in demand, in times of drought, how much supply do we really have relative to generalized usage patterns about customers. But if you go to the next slide, you'll see here we do break it out from year to year and look at the different supply buckets over time and how they fluctuate in different hydrologic conditions. So the bar along the top shows demand increasing over time. You'll notice it kind of ramps up slowly over time. This is a 50-year time horizon. This is a graph we produced through work with Westwater through a model that they developed for us. It's a pretty comprehensive model that considers all of our supplies. So those colored bars are our different supply buckets, and you can see how they sort of fluctuate depending whether it's a wet, dry year. But what I really want to call your attention to here is that big gap that you can see about 3/4 of the way through. Yeah, so that is representing a supply shortfall that we would expect to encounter. So that's saying that there's a prolonged drought happening preceding that, and that we would get to the point where we would not have supply to actually meet demand in those conditions. And so in the past, we would have met that through supplemental water purchases and, of course, demand management, and then historically, probably increased groundwater pumping as well. So we need to think about how we're going to meet that going forward, and the CAP project is the project that we've been proposing to meet that and that we're using as the basis for this discussion. But I think that's a good way to see the motivation for this project. And if you go to the next slide, so as I mentioned, if we throw CAP into the mix here, you can see CAP as a stable supply in that purple bar along the bottom there. And you can see then we don't have any major supply gaps. There are, it's a little hard to see, there's some bright pink up at the top there a couple times. Yeah, thank you, Bob. And so that would represent purchases of supplemental water, which we would still expect to make in this scenario. However, those are small enough amounts that we believe we could reasonably purchase those amounts, since we know if amounts of supplemental water purchases get too high, it just might not be available. And also, these are small enough amounts that, that far into the future, we could identify some other mechanism possibly to meet them as well. So.
And is that why there's no supplemental purchase on the first chart?
Yeah, so the first chart we just want to show as baseline of what we need to meet, the need that we need to meet. I think that one of the problems we encountered here was that even if we tried to purchase sufficient supplemental water for that, there's not pipeline capacity for it. We can't meet this without doing some other project like CAP. We did look at scenarios of like, if we do groundwater banking, if we throw supplemental water into the mix. We looked at a couple of different things, and the one that provided the best reliability was the CAP.
Yeah, I guess I always find it curious when we're missing another aspect. We put CAP in there, and then we say, well, we also can't do supplemental purchases on this one. It seems unusual to me that we meet supply with CAP and another extra source, and then we ignore both sources in the first chart. Just strikes me as unusual.
So if we purchase supplemental water, I think it would be difficult and probably very expensive to purchase enough to meet that gap.
Sure, but the gap would be
assuming it's
smaller.
Available, it could be smaller, but we wouldn't remedy it, I think, to the extent that's necessary. I think that we presented the results of this exercise that we did with Westwater, and we showed the different scenarios and the graphs for them, but we'd be happy to show you those again to see how these compare. Because even if we decide it's not CAP, it's some other project, we still would need to adopt a methodology for how to translate that into this impact fee. So I think for now it makes sense to proceed with CAP as the basis. And then if for some reason that isn't the decision, we could go back and reassess the fee with one of the alternative projects. So stay on this slide for a second. So one thing that we need to consider with this fee is how we proportion that CAP bucket to the existing users and what is available for new demand. Because we need to know whether we can say any of this is available for new demand or whether we need it all for that reliability for new users. And what we came up with when doing some tweaking in this model was that it seems like about an 80%, 20% split seems most realistic. So that would be about 80% of that bucket is reserved for existing users, and about 20% of it would be available for new users. And what we looked at was, at what point do we need to purchase supplemental water to the extent that it might actually be really difficult to get? So if we allocated more than 20% of this bucket to new users, it might be difficult to meet the reliability of existing users, and we might not be able to purchase enough supplemental water to meet that need. So this was where we felt like we might have some minor supplemental water purchases, as you can see with that pink at the top, but that this seemed like a reasonable way to meet the demand of both buckets.
Go back to the slide before. See the tiny white, those two little tiny white
Yeah.
stacks? that mean that we're low on water?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So, going to Casey's point, why wouldn't we shade those in pink? Because isn't acquiring water from the north still part of baseline? Or no?
I think this was baseline without any supplemental water purchases.
Whether it's cap or.
Yeah. Okay, so you can go to the next slide. So now I'll walk through, that was the, sort of setting up the nexus of why we need this additional demand. So now I'll go through how we'd actually translate the CAP project into a dollar amount that we'd charge customers. So if you go to the next slide. So I want to start here with the total capital cost of the project is sort of our starting bucket that we want to consider here. So we take that cost of about 69 million and we want to subtract out our grants and loans there. And that gives us our capital cost total for the project. That is our starting point. And then from there, we want to think about that in terms of an annual cost that we need to be paying each year that we're trying to recover from customers. And so that is that 1.96 million, and that's based on a 30-year term at 1.7% for that total capital cost. So that 1.96 million is going to be an important piece of information for this calculation. So if you go to the next one. So we want to recover that cost from all users. So that is our existing demand. Our baseline for existing demand, we're saying, is about 3,800 acre feet. And then also we want to be considering new demand because we'll have both those sets of customers that we're recovering this 1.96 million from. And we need to make some assumptions about how much new demand there'll be. So we're saying about 10 acre feet over 5 years, which given the developments that we have proposed right now, that seem like they're actually going to be implemented soon, that's a reasonable number to use. This is a number which we'll reevaluate every 5 years. So if it turns out there's more or less than that, we can sort of capture that in the update. And also, the number, you actually have to change that 10 acre feet number a lot for the resulting impact fee to really change. So I think it's okay if we end up being a little bit off in that number. It would really need to change by like an order of magnitude for it to have a significant change in the result. So we take that annual debt service number and we divide it by our total demand base of 3810 acre feet for the first 5 years, and that gives us our dollar per acre foot number that we want to use. And so if you go to the next slide, Bob. So then what we need to do is, you have to remember, we're thinking about a 30-year time horizon, right? So anyone who's in the system is going to be paying for this every year. So they're going to be paying for it for 30 years for that 1.96 million. So we want to take that $500 per acre feet and essentially look at it for 30 years. So we take the net present value of 30 years of that 514 payment, and we get an acre foot dollar amount of 12,000. So if you go to the next one. So then we need to take that $12,000 and actually subtract it from our annual capital cost. Because remember, we have a total annual capital amount of about 45 million, and that is for 1,000 acre feet per year of reliability from CAP. So if we want to say per acre foot, it's about $45,000. And so when someone is buying into this system, they're essentially paying for a portion of that 1,000 acre feet of reliability for the next 30 years. So we want to use that dollar per acre foot cost of the 45.8 and subtract out the 12,000. And the reason that we do that is so that we're not double counting, because if you're joining the system, you're going to pay an upfront fee now to join the system, and then you're going to pay as a member for 30 years. So that 12,000 is what you'll be paying in the future. So we want to make sure that we subtract that from the 45. So the 45 is, sort of the benefit that you're paying for. So we want to subtract out the future payments that you're going to make from the 45, and then that is the remainder that you'd pay as your upfront impact fee. So right now we're expecting that fee to be around $33,800 per acre foot. As I've mentioned in previous meetings and in the documentation, That is in line with what we see from neighboring agencies where fees range from, I think, $30,000 to $60,000, depending what you're bundling into your fee. So it definitely seems in line with what we would expect. And I think that might be the last slide on, yeah.
Can I ask a question on that last
Yes.
one? So this doesn't recover any existing O&M if I come in 5 years?
This
the
is not
O&M
O&M. Yeah, because O&M you would be charged annually through your water bill or, whatever mechanism we decide.
Right, but if I come in 5 years from now and we're subtracting 12K per year about,
Just for capital.
right,
It's-
but the O&M has maintained that structure throughout.
Yeah. So we worked with Raftellus Financial Consultants to come up with this methodology, and they advised us not to include the O&M because we were initially thinking the same thing. And they advised us that that would not be the way to go.
Just because?
I don't know.
Defensibility.
Yeah. I don't think anyone else does it that way. What's sort of the rationale?
I mean, we do it with our current fee recapturing for new users, right? I mean, to get into the system, you have to pay the capital cost recovery fee, right?
Yeah, it's
That's
based on an
asset.
asset value, though.
All asset value.
Correct. Yeah.
Thanks.
So if you go to the next slide, I think it just summarizes some of the key things that I mentioned, which make up how this works. So that 20-80% split is an important piece of this. We would plan to update this every 5 years. And again, I looked at tweaking the numbers a little bit for how sensitive this is to that update frequency. And again, it seems like the numbers don't change a lot depending how you change that. So I think we're safe with doing updates every 5 years. And then as a starting point, we're assuming 10 acre feet over the next 5 years. And that would be about 33.8 per acre foot.
So is that 80-20 split, is that saying essentially we have 200 acre feet of water available through this project to new customers? Thanks.
Okay, next slide. So just to give a sense of what the 10 acre feet might look like, and also how this fee would translate to potential projects. So you can see, because I know that dollar per acre foot number can sound very high. So if you go to the next slide, just to give two examples here. So if you had a commercial lot, and remember our baseline allocation for commercial lots is based on historical use. So a lot might have a very low historical use baseline. And then if you put on that lot about 20 units of high density residential development, we might expect about 4 acre feet of intensification from that. So 4 acre feet of demand above the baseline, which they have been given based on their historical use. So we would expect about $132,000 through the water supply impact fee for that project. Another example would be if you have a mixed lot that's pretty large, some agriculture, some pasture, some dwelling units on it. So not densely used, but certainly use going on there. And then you had a residential development with a mix of density of homes, some like single family, some high density, some estates of about 40 units. We might expect about 7.5 acre feet of intensification there, so about $260,000 through the water supply impact fee for that. So I think this shows that this is really applying to, and these amounts seem large, but they are being charged to, significant developments that are proposed for the area. So I would think these charges would be in line with those costs and not, completely disproportionate from what would be reasonable to assess. Okay. So that's it on the methodology proposal. So I'll just talk about the next couple meetings. So that first row is this meeting where we talk about the methodology. The next meeting, we would like to bring a draft ordinance and report. So one of the requirements for this impact fee is that we have a report which clearly outlines the nexus between the need for the fee and the project and what the fee is. as well as laying out the methodology and some background about the district. It's going to be pretty simple, just a couple pages. And then, of course, we'll have the ordinance as well. And so in there, we'll have the detailed methodology for you to review. And then unless there are any changes to that, we'll ask for adoption on the 27th then.
It sounds scary, but we're talking like $300,000 a year, basically, like in recovered fees, right?
Yeah.
About 10
Well-
acre feet or so.
Well, not necessarily three. Will you go back to the other slide with the examples? So we're thinking about 10 acre feet over 5 years. Now, that could be all in 1 year.
Sure.
It could be,
Scattered a little bit.
scattered 2 acre feet per year. I do think it's most likely it'll come in buckets like this, where maybe it's 2 times throughout the 5-year period. So it wouldn't be 300,000 a year, most likely.
Yeah.
But you can see, yeah, it might be 130 and then 258, and then that's it for the 5-year period, basically.
And then the funds, would they be allocated for a specific purpose, or they just go into the general fund, or what's the?
So when we send the documents to legal counsel to review, that's one of the things that we need to get clarification on, because from the documents that I've looked at, it's a little unclear. From what I've seen, it seems a bit conflicting, so.
Thanks.
Go ahead, Patrick.
I just want to say we did review this also in the rate and budget meeting, including the assumptions going in, a couple of the examples that were presented here, so thank you, that's helpful. And we did discuss the relationship to, the typical cost recovery fee. So I think the structure is rational. The last point I would make is I think we also talked about that last point, and that at least correct me if I'm wrong, but the thought was that this is really about debt offset, so the funds would go to servicing the debt. I think that was the point.
Yeah, I think that was the thinking, but we haven't run it by our legal counsel to tell us if, there's something special we have to do. We could put it in a sinking fund that goes towards the CAP project to operate and maintain it, or, there are different things that you could do with that revenue. I don't think we were anticipating that would just go into general revenue for.
Right.
Any other? Go
I
ahead,
just want to
Polly.
say, we've been at this a long, long time. This is the furthest we've ever gotten. We've never had anything like this before. We really needed it, so congratulations to staff and working with Raptalis and all that. A couple more things to clarify, I get that, but good analysis. We can tweak as we go. Thank you.
Just a question, so what are the other districts doing? Are they putting it in general fund? Are they putting it towards debt service or reserves?
It seemed like it was a combination of things. Well, it's hard because everyone structures this a little differently. So Goleta, they have their capital cost recovery fee and this combined in one charge. And then Ventura, they have the development specific charge like this, but everyone structures it differently. So Ventura also, they have a specific capital project on which they base their cost, but they structured the fee itself differently. So I think it's a little bit hard to draw parallels.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
I have one more quick question. So why don't we just incorporate this into the existing, like, CCRF? What's the advantage, or?
So I think to do that, we would need to use the replacement new less depreciation method, I think is the acronym, which is the AWWA proposed method that we use for the capital cost recovery fee, and that's initially how we'd structured this. So then I think that left open the question for whether or not to include it, and Raftelis guided us away from that method to this. So I think because this is structured differently, we would not want to include it with that.
And capital cost recovery fee, which is based on all of the assets, is based on a per meter charge. So
Right.
1 meter,
Yeah.
1 3/4 inch meter has a specific capital cost recovery charge. This is a water supply based fee, so it's really looking at, okay, are newcomers impacting our water supply, and if they are, they're going to need to buy into this project.
Thanks.
We've referred to the consultant a couple of times here. Is there still some heavy lifting to go with that? Or are we kind of at
No.
the tail end?
No, they've
Yeah.
provided us the methodology, which is what I outlined, so.
Very good.
All right, thank you. Then we go on to item number 8F, consider findings on D&O insurance for directors for action, Bob.
Yeah, so this was a question that was brought up by Director O'Connor, I think your first week here, maybe. And that was, do we have what's called D&O coverage in our liability insurance with the JPIA? And we investigated that, and it did take a while to conclude that while they do have what they call E&O insurance that covers most of the liability for various, things, it excludes some very important things, and so we'll just run through these here. So basically, as I said, the question is, does the current exclusion in our JPIA E&O insurance concerning adoption or administration application of ordinances, resolutions, or regulations open up a gap in our coverage? And the answer I think we concluded with was yes, it does. So the JPIA E&O policy excludes specifically things like policy adoption. So meaning if something were to happen where a director is accused of being liable for a policy that was adopted that had some negative effect or caused some damage to the person bringing the suit, the JPIA insurance would not cover that. And so I think the brunt of risk is associated with policy adoption and enforcement of ordinances and regulations. And so that's a pretty big exclusion. And so we realized, okay, now we have to figure out, is there any other assistance? So we looked at statutory coverage, and under California Government Code 820.2, there is, it offers qualified immunity for discretionary acts. So in other words, California has found that, directors are protected for discretionary acts. But the problem is, someone can still file lawsuits, and the directors may be responsible to pay for the cost of defending that, even though the defense is relatively simple by just citing the Government Code 820.2 that they're immune from these types of lawsuits. It does leave an opening for someone to file a suit just to do it. And so we concluded that the statutory coverage is still not closing the gap of liability. And so we investigated D&O coverage itself from a third-party insurer, and it specifically protects board members from personal liability related to official actions, including legal costs, and defense costs and other things like settlement and judgments. Although we don't think the risk is there for judgments because of the California Government Code section. And the benefits of having D&O is, addresses those gaps that remain after both the JPI E&O exclusion and the state statutory protections. So we concluded that we should get and provide additional D&O and D&O coverage through a third-party insurer to complement the existing E&O policy.
Okay, any questions?
First of all, I want to thank Patrick for bringing this up, because I remember the very, very first meeting, I was stunned. I just assumed JPAA had us all covered. I think we all did too. And my question is then, so I support this, are the other water districts aware of this, that there's some gaps in JPA's coverage? Do you
I
know if
don't-
they
I don't
have-
know the answer
Should
to
we
that,
check
no.
with any of the other guys to see if they already have supplemental insurance?
I know that there are other water agencies that have D&O insurance, and the JPI provided some contracts that they had, or they had with a third party providing D&O insurance. So there are some out there. I don't know whether the local agencies are doing that or not.
Okay. Thank you.
You need a motion?
Yes, please.
I'll make a motion to authorize the general manager to secure D&O coverage.
Polly seconds.
We got a motion and a second. Any more discussion? And roll call, please.
Director O'Connor,
Aye.
Director Holcomb,
Yes.
Director Balch.
Aye.
Director Roberts is absent. Director Van Wingerden.
Yes.
Motion passes 4-1.
Then we got 9A, Rate and Budget Committee meeting, July 17, 2025, Directors O'Connor and Roberts, but I'm assuming, is there anything you want to share additional? Or?
Yeah, I think we covered
Oh,
the,
we did skip item G, 8G.
Oh, sorry.
excuse me.
Yeah, that's a big deal. Sorry, sorry, Patrick. We'll go back to item 8G, consider participation in the CWA surplus water transfer program for action. Sorry, Bob.
Yeah, so this came up at the last operating committee meeting, although it didn't turn out to be a meeting because we didn't have a quorum. We still held a discussion. And one of the things that was brought up at that meeting was, how are we doing with respect to the risk of losing some of the carryover water that we've been storing in San Luis Reservoir? And the answer was, there's a lot of water that will get lost if we don't have a transfer program or have a way to bank this and so at the end of the meeting, we concluded that we need to at least put the transfer program in place and start soliciting members to see if anyone's interested in potentially transferring some of our carryover away to maybe a buyer or to a bank. And so this item is really just to give the manager the authority to enter into the program. So what we'll do at a later date is we'll have to make a determination if we do have supplemental water and we do want to transfer some of that.
Okay, so we need a motion for Bob to go ahead and,
Second.
we got a motion and a second. Any more discussion? And roll call, please.
Director O'Connor,
Aye.
Director Holcomb. Director Balch.
Aye.
Director Roberts is absent. Director Van Wingerden.
Yes.
Motion passes 4-1.
Okay, thank you. Then we got item number 9A, Patrick.
Yeah, we covered already, I think, in the
Yeah.
different agenda items. The three of them were the impact fee, the budget, or both impact fees in the budget.
Right, okay, thank you. Then we got item number 9B, CCWA Operating Committee meeting, July 10th, 2025, Bob.
That was the CCWA operating committee that
You just mentioned.
wasn't a committee because we didn't have a quorum.
So
we-
there was no meeting. I mean, there was a
Was-
meeting, but no.
There was no
quorum.
meeting yet, so I'm
Okay.
not required to report on it.
That settles that. Then we got number 10A, financials. Norma, you're going to do this? Or?
Okay, and back at page 267, the water sales budget to actual through May, we are 250 acre feet above our sales projections. On the financials, through May, we are 92% through the year. Our water sales are about 89%, so just under that, and that's related to the monthly service charges. I'm coming in under budget. And our overall revenue is at 95% through the year. And overall expenditures are at 90%, so just 2% below budgeted projections.
Any questions? We're good. Then we got number 10, B, Bob.
The engineering report?
Yes.
Yeah, so I'm not going to cover that unless you have questions on it. There are a number of activities that the engineering group has been doing. But these are all projects that have kind of been going, so unless you have a question, I won't go through.
Right, so on B, C, and D, if there's no questions, we move on.
What's that?
I was just going to say, can I mention something on A4, just the paymentes processing?
Sorry.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Sorry about that. I know it was brought up at the last meeting, so I just wanted to give a little bit of an update there. Regarding the paymentes, that's our new credit card processor. So the board approved this, I think, back in February or March of 2025, and we were given a 90-day go live estimate. Our current software provider, Tyler Tech, is not very third-party friendly, so it has taken weekly meetings with Paymentus, trying to get files back and forth. As I mentioned at the last meeting, we did go live on June 17th. And we're still working out some kinks, but we are no longer using our prior provider. We did receive our first, I guess, half-month bill from Paymentus, and it was only $600 compared to the thousands of dollars we were paying with the previous. So I do expect to have a positive report, and I can bring an update at the next board meeting once we have a full month's worth of processing fees. So I do expect to see a huge savings there in that switch there. But again, I just wanted to reiterate that it did take the full 90 days plus to try to work back and forth in getting the files and processing. So, but it is now up and running.
Are you planning on staying with the software you're integrated now and you're satisfied that?
That's actually, so our software that's on our list this year to look at other software providers, actually, as part of this implementation, because Casitas Water did also, I believe, January of 24 or 25 moved over to Paymentus as well. So we were communicating with them in terms of the difficulties that they had because they also have Tyler. And so that was very helpful. But they did mention that they, at that time, I think it was in February, were changing software providers. So they were very helpful in providing us their list of the vendors that they were working with and the pros and cons and who they went with. So it really saved us a lot of time. So this year, our IT program manager is going to start looking at other software. So you may see something come back in the next fiscal year 27.
Perfect, thank you.
And that includes billing or no?
Yes, it would be
Okay,
financial
so
and billing. Yes.
Take your time.
Yes.
You
yeah,
know how I feel
no,
about
it's
this.
a huge
brings me
undertaking.
back to my old days, okay? Billing software is just,
Yes, we transitioned to InfoSend into Tyler in 2008. So we've been with them for quite some time, and it was a huge undertaking at that point. So we've been looking at this for a couple years, but I think just with the difficulty that we had in changing providers and other things that we want to implement, that's really difficult to move forward with other vendors because of their inability to want to work with third parties. Is really motivating us to
Integration,
finally, start the process to look at other providers.
All
Thank
right,
you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, so then on 10B, C, and D, are there any questions for Bob? No, then we move on to closed session. Do we have a closed session? Okay, so cancel number 11. Then we go on to item number 13, consider dates and items for the agenda for the Carpinteria Valley Water District Board meeting of August 13, 2025 at 5:30 p.m. at Carpinteria City Hall, 5775 Carpinteria Avenue, Carpinteria, California. And we are adjourned. That was pretty smooth, guys.
Recording stopped.